I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here inside the Hub Culture Studio, Davos 2019. Really pleased Ellen MacArthur, the founder of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, has come back to talk to me.
Again, year 8 of Davos.
I know, it's year 10 for me.
Oh, wow, well done.
Thanks, man. I'm looking for a pin, maybe, sort of celebratory. So one of the reasons I'm really excited to talk to you is because something that you've been working on, not a secret, plastic, is a project that is almost born of Davos. It's something that has gone from problem to potentially solution. Talk me a little bit through the journey and most importantly, where you think we are now.
Well, we looked at plastic in the context of a circular economy. You know, what we do at the foundation is accelerate the transition towards that circular economy, and plastic is a great example of a change that needs to be made systemically. You know, Coke can't do this, Pepsi can't do this, Unilever can't do this, Mars can't do this. None of them can do this on their own. They can't solve the plastic packaging problem. The system has to be changed, and that has to be done collectively. And so what we set about doing 5 years ago was to try and work out what a mechanism would look like, this was before plastics, that would create systemic change. To get everyone around the table, all of the actors in the value chain, right from the polymer producers to the brands, to the waste reprocessors, to the municipalities, to the consumer in that chain, get everyone in the room and say, what does success look like for this industry? And in plastic packaging, we began by looking at the numbers together with the consortia as to what was leaking, realised it was actually perhaps worse than we thought. More plastic in the sea than fish by 2050 was a real moment 3 years ago here in Davos. But what that's done is it's mobilised not only the will to change, but the conversation, which is the most important thing. And I'd say what we've learnt with plastics and the journey with plastics has been about how do you take a high volume, low value, completely fragmented material globally, which seems impossible, how do you actually begin to take steps to work out what success looks like? And that's exactly what we did, and we got the consortia to agree, and it was not easy.
Was it not?
Well, because everybody has a different agenda. Everyone has been doing their own innovations, actually generally trying to find a solution. But 100 innovations in 100 different directions doesn't create a solution. It creates 100 different innovations. What we need is systemic change, which is a common solution. And so we worked to create that common solution, saying, you know, we believe with the consortia, which now makes up over 20% of the global market, saying
including a lot of competitors.
Oh, absolutely. Many competitors that looked at, you know, what's success, and we believed that we could make 100% of plastic either recyclable, either compostable, or reusable. And so it splits the plastic 78 million tonnes into kind of 50% designed to be recyclable, which actually is often not the case today, as we know. 30% needed to be redesigned, different distribution models, because it's kind of small format, blows away, tremendous leakage and not economically recyclable. And then 20% designed to be reusable. And with that 30, 20, 50 split, we created what we call the global commitment, which was getting organisations outside of the companies and the initial group to sign up to say that they would not only go for the 30, 50, 20 split, but they would eliminate all plastic that we don't need, innovate around the plastic that we do so that it's recyclable, and then look at the reuse element as well, and make sure that we actually circulate what we use. And it's been a fascinating journey. We've now got over 300 signatories.
Incredible.
We got 250 in the first 3 months.
Okay.
It was absolutely extraordinary, and we reckon we'll have 500 by the end of this year.
Okay, so what does that mean that the next step is? Because agreement is one thing, and now action is the next.
Well, one part of action is knowing where you're going, which is what we've established together with consortia. There are time-bound targets. Reporting back every year is something that the consortia actually signs up to. It's now a case of putting that into practice. And what's been phenomenal about the consortia is that you already have a group who can begin to make this happen. You can begin to change design. You can look at different models for recycling, different materials, get everyone on the same page with regards to materials, so they're recyclable. So that conversation had already started. But we also have regional implementation projects, first being the UK Plastics Pact, which is the government working with industry, working really in a public-private partnership, saying how we're going to make this happen in the UK.
Fantastic. What about places? We know that that there's 10 rivers in the world that are the source of where most of the plastics end up in the ocean. What about places like India, where there's a commitment to do something about plastic, but a tremendous constraint in terms of resource and then implementation at a real local village level?
I think, you know, we have massive leakage. And in those territories, we have a massive lack of collection and infrastructure for recycling what's recyclable. But part of the challenge is so much as what's produced, particularly in those markets with a small format sachet, very cheap to buy, very easy to use, that work very well systems, apart from the fact it's single-use plastic that nothing can be done with and leaks out into the system. So part of the solution is absolutely on the ground collecting the material and feeding it into a system, but that infrastructure is easier to install if what you're making and feeding into that market has value. And at the moment, the majority does not have value. So building a system that has value to enable the infrastructure to back that up, to enable the local people and the region to make money out of that material because it is valuable, that's what's needed. So our goal is looking at the upstream innovation end. Obviously the downstream end has to happen, that's part of the new plastic economy and the transition to a new plastic economy, but that upstream innovation is vital. We cannot fix this by collecting it at the end. We have to change the flows.
Okay. So I was speaking to the CEO of Plastic Energy yesterday, who was telling me that the solution that he's developed in terms of you feed any plastic in, you can break it down, recrack it, turn it back into plastic, works economically if he's getting that plastic in for free. But I would argue that capitalism, and that sounds like what you're saying, makes it easier if that thing has a value. So how do you change that part of the value chain?
I think it's more than what you can do with the plastic, it's also the material itself. And when we sat down with the companies, it took 2 years, looking at what should stay and what should go and what was leaking, particularly in the emerging markets. Those small format sachets, if you could fit them into that system, you could say, well, let's just put that system at the end, carry on as we are, and Bob's your uncle, there's no more plastic going in the sea. The reality is those small format sachets are often used in rivers to wash clothes, they're used in watercourses, they're tiny, they blow away. We have massive leakage here in Europe. Look at the River Thames. Look at rivers within Europe. Just look at the plastic at the side of the river. It's everywhere, and we're actually really quite good at it with infrastructure here. So it's about selecting the things that fit within a system that works. Like the PET bottles arguably have value, are recyclable. It's a system that would work. The challenge is it's mixed in with lots of things that aren't.
Okay, what even better if, that's my question for you, what does it look like even better if success happens this time next year, if what?
Well, our goal's towards 2025 when it comes to the new plastics economy and the global commitment. So we are looking at measurable town-bound targets towards 2025.
Great. Ellen, thank you very much for stopping by the Hub Culture Pavilion and the studio here in Davos, and I'm Edie Lush.